I don't often get to use this gavel, so I thought I'd use it this morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole of Osoyoos Town Council, December the 21st, 2020. And I just have to say, thank heavens, it's the shortest day today, and we're starting to on the upward swing, because it seems pretty dark when you get up in the morning, doesn't it? Anyway, it'll get lighter and lighter as we go through the next months. I will call the meeting to order, and I need a resolution to exclude the public. So it will be moved and seconded that in accordance with Ministerial Order M192, Town of Osoyoos Committee of the Whole meeting be closed to the public due to the inability to meet physical distancing recommendations made under the Public Health Act in council chambers located at 8707 Main Street. And that to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability, the Town of Osoyoos Committee of the Whole meetings will be recorded, live streamed, and published on the town's website. Could I have thank you. Councillor Bennett, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you. And I just want to note that two of our councillors are here in council chambers, Councillor King and Councillor Bennett, and two of our councillors, Councillor Rhodes and Councillor Harvey, are joining us by Zoom. So welcome, everyone. So is there any introduction of late items? Mrs. Hilson, thank you. So could we have a motion that the Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as printed? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, thank you. All in favor? Good. And first off this morning, we have a delegation from the Oliver Search and Rescue. And we have a presentation from Brenda Arachuk. And Brenda, would you like to introduce, welcome Brenda first, and would you like to introduce the other member that you have with you?
Yes, thank you for having us. This is my husband, Michael Arachuk. Oh. He will actually be doing the presentation. He's been quite involved in the building of our truck and trailer station. And so I'm going to let him give you all the details on that.
Well, thank you, and welcome to you both. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Do we have the slides already on the screen, or do I have to share them?
So council has them.
Okay.
You could share them. Let's see if you can share them, but council also has them in front of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay, let's see if I can just share them.
Ms. McKay, when we have this presentation on there, would you be able to move just a little bit sideways so we could see the screen?
I can move right now.
Yeah, there. Just, yeah, thanks. Even if you just move back, then we can all see it better.
Are you able to see that then?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Just go here.
Okay.
Flexible.
There we go. Okay, yes, we can see it now. Thank you.
Excellent. First off, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide you with an update on our building. That's very much appreciated. Mayor McCortoff and Councilman, we appreciate that opportunity. Myself, I'm Michael Arachuk. I'm a SAR manager with Oliver Osoyoos Search and Rescue. I'm also the civilian search and rescue dog handler for the team, and team member on the building committee. So our update today is our truck and trailer station is complete. We're totally stoked about that. First off, we wanted to thank you, the town of Osoyoos, for your contribution of $5,000 through your community gaming grant. We took that $5,000 and turned it into $10,000 through our provincial capital gaming grant application. It was your community grant. We also wanted to thank Mayor McCortoff for the recent support for our SAR K9 application to Emergency Management BC, which the application is now within EMBC, and we should hear early in the new year their decision on operationalizing our validated search stop. In regards to our truck and trailer station, we've met the goals that we had set out for it. Response time totally improved. We're able to deploy faster. Our goals were that the equipment in the vehicles remain safe and secure. Vehicles are warm, don't have to be warmed up in the winter. Our supplies would be able to be in the vehicles versus the haul, and our trailers are connected and ready to go. Essentially, in the past, we always had our first aid supplies in our SAR haul, and our skidoos and ATVs and UTVs locked up in C-cans. Now, we are able to have everything connected in a warm building and ready to go. The additional unplanned benefit that we have during COVID is we're able to use the truck and trailer station for training and education, both by our team and regionally. The proposed building was planned to be a 48-foot by 60-foot building with a 16-foot high ceiling with 6 12 by 14 overhead bay doors for complete drive-through of the building. Our budget was $225,000, and this included USAR providing the project management for the project and running the sub-trades, as well as our team members laying in the in-floor radiant heating and bringing in the services within the property line. We also were responsible for backfill and site cleanup. Everything else that we did was through trades and subcontractors that were local to the valley, local to Oliver and Osoyoos. And we were very, very pleased with the work of all our trades and for the community benefit that they threw in, because sometimes they didn't charge us everything. So we were very appreciative of that. Within the town of Oliver, we had requested a land use extension. This picture shows, in the blue line, shows the previous compound size. Town of Oliver granted us the land extension, which is in red on this picture, and they also extended our lease to 20 years. So that, coupled with the support that we received from the town of Osoyoos, the town of Oliver, and the Indian Band, we were able to successfully secure a $100,000 capital gaming grant towards the building. And then our project was born. Our planned building, as you can see from the picture, is now a reality. And I wanted to emphasize again, we used all local trades and suppliers. We ended up with a building that is highly energy efficient and that we're able to drive through. So when we come in with trucks and trailers connected, we come through the back of the building, drive right through, and we can park and be facing the street and ready to go. One thing that I'm very proud of too is we came in 5% under budget, and that included the addition of about $10,000 added to the expenditures for fencing and an alarm system. So from a project point of view, very successfully managed to build this building with the community and come in under budget. The SAR hall can fit 3 SAR trucks with 3 loaded trailers, plus there's room for some of our additional ATVs that are not loaded. The building is heated, so our first aid supplies and other gear are all loaded. So now we can respond much, much faster. As I mentioned, this is much better than the old way when we used to have to pull things out of sea cans. And when it snowed a foot and you got a call, getting stuff out of those sea cans was a real challenge, I'll have to tell you. From an energy efficiency point of view, we're very pleased that this building would be pretty close to net zero, if not a little bit past net zero. Our solar arrays provide us 16,000 to 20,000 kilowatts of power. We also have 2 96-inch DC ceiling fans. When they operate, they'll use less energy than a 60-watt bulb. And we have radiant in-floor heating with a gas boiler, highly energy efficient. So the cost of running this building will be offset by the solar gains from our solar power, and then we're hopeful that there'll be a little extra solar gain left over to reduce the cost of our current SAR hall that we use for our training and our SAR management. So we're proud to say we have met our goals. We've achieved our benefits of a new truck and trailer station that will allow trucks, trailers, and equipment to always be securely stored, loaded, and ready to go for emergencies in any weather or any temperature. The result is a substantially improved response time to call-outs, essentially 1 hour faster. This increases our ability to save lives and respond to people that need rescue. All right. And the additional benefits, of course, is the truck, trailer, and equipment have an extended useful life from being stored in an insulated building and are secure, and the building can be used for training. And this is especially important in this COVID world because we have 3,000 square feet that we can spread out and safely do training. Big part of this presentation was to thank the town of Osoyoos for their support, and I'd like to open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. It sounds terrific, and you've obviously thought of a lot of important green initiatives to go along with this. And I love the solar power. I think that's such a cool idea, and it's probably something we're going to see a lot more of. Can I ask, is this building, is it down close to the airport? Is that where it is?
That's correct. We're on Cessna Drive. On the east side of the airport.
Good, good. And I understand that you had some thefts over the last while that from the CCANs. This obviously is a much more secure building. Am I correct? Was it
yes,
you guys that had the thefts? Mm-hmm. Yes, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had some thefts, even people cutting locks off of our command trailer as well.
Oh.
So now we're able to store everything inside of the secure building with the alarm system as well.
Perfect. I just want to say one more thing, and I'll open it up to council, but we certainly missed having you in our July 1st parade this year. We missed everybody, of course, because we didn't have one. And so we're certainly hoping that in the future you'll be able to join us again, because you've always been a very important part of our parade. Thank you. Council, anybody have, go ahead, Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Michael, for giving us an update. I think it's a great improvement for what you can do and the service you can provide. And I just want to thank all your volunteers for the work you do in the South Okanagan.
Absolutely.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who had a question? No? Okay, well, we certainly appreciate you coming and showing us all the good work that you've been doing. Thank you very much, Michael and Brenda. And we certainly hope that you don't have any major areas to go out and deal with in 6 feet of snow, because the way it's snowing right now, we might have a little bit of it for a while, eh? So have a very Merry Christmas and the best to you in 2021. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next, we have a couple of business items, and one is Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. Mr. Chabot, are you going to talk about that one?
Your Worship, just really briefly, yet another grant funding opportunity comes along. It's a bilateral British Columbia-Canada agreement. It's the Investing in Canada COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream. This is only on the agenda for Council's information. If Council has any ideas or suggestions that fit with program objectives, this was provided to senior management seeking submission of suggestions of items we might apply for. Haven't got a whole lot yet that would seem to qualify. The intent of this is projects that provide retrofits, repairs, and upgrades to local government and Indigenous government buildings, health and education infrastructure, allow communities to improve their infrastructure to increase resiliency and efficiency in preventing the spread of COVID-19, support the development of active transportation networks, and complete disaster mitigation and adaptation infrastructure projects. There was some local government recreational facility suggestions, some upgrades at Sun Bowl Arena. This isn't for recreational infrastructure, so if council has any ideas or suggestions, the application deadline is January 27th, 2021. One item that we had considered that may fit would be to put automatic doors and automatic fixtures in all of the public washroom facilities in town and in our buildings. Sun Bowl's already been done, I believe, and so is Sonora Center. But some of the other places, Gyro Park, Kinsman, Goodman Park, Pioneer Walkway, automatic door on Town Hall perhaps, upgrade of this washroom here as well to touchless fixtures. Probably all in, you'd be looking $100,000 anyways. And that's really the only one that's been identified that seems to make sense. So if you've got any suggestions.
Oh, Councillor King, you have one.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I see it talks about public transit. Would there be a way to to fund a local bus for a year or two out of this program? I mean, we keep hearing about people trying to move around town.
They're more talking active transportation, so it would be probably alternative to automobile trips, but it might be buses. Could certainly look into more program details and see if that would be applicable. It'd be really neat if small towns had small electric trolleys that were just hop on, hop off, and they ran all the
That
time
would be
too.
unique. I guess it would also tie in, I mean, there was a need for a handy dart come in, actually in this article, we're gonna get presented later, so I was wondering if maybe you could partner with the group that looks after the handy dart and help expand that.
Could certainly look at it, yeah.
Look at that for sure.
And then one other thought, I guess my pet project up at the grandstand at Desert Park needs some improvements. So that would actually fit into this grant.
Yeah, our challenge with these has been recently, they've mostly had fairly short timelines.
Yeah.
And we don't have shovel-ready design for most of this work. And so what we're trying to do is get in front of it. And one of the things that we asked and informed council we wanted to do with particularly Legion Beach improvements
Yes.
was let us proceed with the design such that we're ready to take advantage of grant opportunities that will come along, because lacking that, we're often
that would've
behind
been
the
a
eight
great-
ball on these things.
Yeah,
But
that would have been a great project.
yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Alan, thank you, Madam Mayor. Would a nonprofit like the museum, those kind of places fit in this as nonprofits?
No, I think this is different. This is for local governments or First Nations
Okay.
to apply. You know, we had the Community Economic Resilience Infrastructure Program, and that was wide open to all the nonprofits. No announcements have been made yet. We don't know if, we know that the museum would have applied, and I think Desert Park applied. We did as well. And there was no limit for the number of applications from a community, whereas oftentimes these, they'll allow one.
So are they only allowing one on this?
Not 100% certain,
Okay.
I think so.
Well, we'd better certainly get on it and make sure that we do put in an application for sure.
Yeah, we're trying not to let grants drive our
Yeah.
agenda too much, but if we can find something that it fits with and it makes sense to do,
Absolutely.
then we'll do it.
Great. Thank you. I'm just looking to see if anybody else has a question. No? Okay, thank you. Next is the report number 1, change of ownership. Ms. McKay.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff, and good morning, everybody. So this is quite exciting, I think, personally, and I think that council will maybe find it interesting as well. So you will recall last year what we rezoned property at the top of Dividend Ridge to accommodate a 9 duplex units subdivision development. Well, the property has since changed hands, and with that comes a change in vision for the area. So the owner is actually now under a registered company. It's not Osoyoos Dividend. We wanted to make sure that it actually fully changed ownership, and I see that's an error in the report. But the applicant for the subdivision is going to be Mr. Glenn Harris. So the purpose of this report is to inform council that the above noted property is in the process of being sold. It's now, in fact, has changed ownership. The new owner of the property is intending to develop the property with single-family homes. As such, conditions were required as part of rezoning are no longer relevant. So I'd like to speak to that today. So the property is located at the top of Dividend Ridge. The property consists of a number of remainder parcels, which are the remaining remnants of the original Dividend Ridge development. Now, with respect to the official community plan, residential policies and OCP seek to accommodate a range of densities throughout the community, so the proposed new development is still aligned with the official community plan. The zoning on the property, the subject property was rezoned in 2019 to accommodate a strata duplex development at the top of Sawgrass Drive, and the map in your report indicates the area which was rezoned from R1 single family to R3 low density family residential with the, you can see at the top, and I've highlighted it there. The R3 zone allows for single family dwellings or duplex units, which is important because the proposed use of this parcel for single family homes is therefore still in conformance with the R3 zone. Now, council will recall that the small triangle lot was rezoned to R2. You can see it again identified in this map as part of the previous development. And that was implemented basically there to allow for a little bit reduced setback to 4.5 meters from the front lot line to address possible siting concerns associated with the irregular shape of the lot, because we don't like to create a lot that then we have to come back to council for a variance. Interestingly enough, you'll note that that 4.5 meter front lot line setback should be fairly familiar to us now after all of the development variance permits we've been looking at to accommodate that varied setback in the R1 zone. So the requirements prior to subdivision approval, town staff have obtained a letter of undertaking from the previous applicant's lawyer, remember that part, confirming registration of various covenants at the time of the initial subdivision. This included the commitment to register a form and character covenant for the duplex lots. However, with the return of this property to single-family homes, staff are suggesting that a form and character covenant is no longer required. However, the registration of the following covenants will continue to be a requirement of subdivision approval and will be included in the preliminary layout review letter which I am preparing. That is the geotechnical covenant to ensure that each building requires the engineer documents prior to the issuance of a building permit, and a no-build covenant which ensures that the issuance of any building permit the developer is required to construct all of the utility services for the proposed subdivision. So what happens is these become a condition of subdivision approval. That is the geotechnical and the no-build covenant. And I don't know if you've been up that way at all lately, but you may have seen a lot of people. There's been a lot of engineers on site, and a lot of our local construction crews have been up there on site determining the best avenue to take to ready the site for development. So we are in the process, of looking at a soil removal permit would help facilitate construction on the site. So the proposed development is in conformance with the OCP and will alleviate any concerns with the neighboring properties may have raised with respect to the proposed duplex development. You'll recall during the public hearing we did hear from some of the neighbors that were concerned that it perhaps wouldn't fit in. So we believe that this is a great proposal, and I just wanted to bring that forward for council so that you have the information on that from us rather than hearing it from anybody else in the community, and ask if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKay. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Because we rezone this to the R3 low density, do we have to kind of make a motion to rescind that and turn it back into single family?
No, but that's a very good question, Councillor King. The R3 zone allows single-family homes, so there's no change in the zoning required. What we could do when we consider it a new zoning bylaw, we could then consider changing it to the R1 zone, but the condition of subdivision approval would be for the single-family homes.
And that's a complete mountain of rock. It's going to be an interesting development. I hope there's a good engineer on site.
There is, and actually I'm quite pleased with the team that they've assembled.
Okay.
And they've put together a great team. We've worked with independently before, both myself and the building inspector, so we're quite comfortable with what's being proposed here.
All right, one last question.
Sure.
I guess on your bottom page where it shows an old diagram of the red, I guess that'll be changed with the new development, like that road and everything will be completely changed.
Are you talking about on the final page on
Yeah,
attachment
yeah.
number 1?
Yes.
So the road in general, this is actually the new plan of subdivision. So the importance of this new plan of subdivision is that it actually shows the cul-de-sac,
Yeah, it was
which previously we didn't have a cul-de-sac there. So this is actually an improvement, and the Director of Operations has identified that this is a much preferred look for the end of Sawgrass, because even though it would still be a strata development, because we don't want to be responsible for maintaining that road, it would still allow us, that would be all dedicated road where the cul-de-sac is.
Yeah.
So that would be dedicated to the town. It provides a better turnaround for anybody that happens to be driving up in the area, but also for service vehicles and for road maintenance.
And I guess why didn't the road go right through and come out at the other end?
Topography.
Topography. You should see the topography you're working with now.
But that's what I'm saying. We don't actually
take a
want
while.
that road.
Oh, okay. I guess the neighbors on the other side don't want all the extra traffic either.
No, we don't, yeah.
We'll talk about it in the
There's a
future.
couple of roads we don't want up there, actually.
So could I ask,
Sure.
is it, the last time when the proposal was done, the neighbors were contacted? Is there, and there isn't any
No.
need to, because there's
No.
nothing that, so they will hear about it the same way that we have, and they will probably be happier, right?
Hopeful.
I would think so.
Yes, with the way it's
Yeah.
handled, okay.
But to just case in point here, Mayor, McCordoff, they may be notified prior to any construction on the site because of the possible blasting, et cetera. So that's the responsibility of the engineer, but we will work with them to make sure that the neighbors are notified.
I think that's a good idea, because if you're doing a lot of blasting, I know that people that I know who live up there say that it's just part of the game plan for 15,
Yes.
20 years, because there's so many new lots being developed, and it's a lot of rock, so,
Hope it's cold.
absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, go ahead.
Big sweater.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. It seems to be a much more comprehensive and better plan than we had up there before. I'm a little concerned about, if I'm looking at the plan correctly, there's only one way in and one way out. A lot of emergency people kind of frown on that kind of setup on the road. Will there be an emergency access route in there in the future, or part of the planning?
Thank you, Councillor. That's a very good question, Councillor Rhodes. At this particular time, no, there is not a plan for a municipal secondary access. There is obviously access to the rear through the Crown lands right now, and that may provide an opportunity in the future. It has been reviewed by the Osoyoos Fire Department staff, and they've not expressed any concerns.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I could, I'm just wondering if there's a fire in there and the cul-de-sac is blocked off for some reason.
No, I appreciate
Might be a
that.
cause for concern.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we can certainly look at opportunities to come in from the back. Because
Okay.
you can actually, you can right now get there from the rear. So-
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? So you would, this just provided for information, so we don't need any
that's correct.
recommendations at this time. So we're okay with this? Everybody's comfortable? Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. McKay, you're up again. Official community plan update.
Okay, thank you. So, the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update of the town's comprehensive official community plan review. including the milestones, progress to date, and then again, provide council with an opportunity to review and comment on the attached community goals and policy section of our new OCP. So the background section includes just an overview of some of our public consultation to date. And the rationale for including that here is that it's been a while since we've been able to have a conversation. So our last meeting with council, when we had that brief window that Dr. Bonnie granted us in July, we did meet with council, you'll recall, at the Sonora Center, well spaced out room, to kind of go over the draft table of contents, talk a little bit about the land use map, and then a little bit about the housing needs report, best practices, and look at the development permit area guidelines in brief. So since that presentation, of course, town staff have been working with the consulting team, preparing the first full draft of the official community plan. Now, we had been hoped to present the full complete draft to the OCP late in 2020, but of course COVID, right? So here we are now with the second wave of the pandemic upon us, which of course resulted in the prohibition of public gatherings. We determined it would be prudent to add a new section to the OCP. And I'm pretty excited about this new section. Basically, it's titled Community Goals and Policies. Now, it's prepared, I'm going to say now, with 3 specific purposes in mind, even though it says 2 in your report. And you'll understand why I say 3 now. It's just something that planners inherently know, but we need to make that clear. First, we want to ensure that the community can easily recognize the value of their input into the OCP process by directly linking their comments to the policies in the plan. Second, we want to demonstrate the linkage between key policy areas. For example, the economic impacts of developing housing. They extend well beyond the construction stage. As we all know, new housing opportunities make a community attractive to new residents, industry, and businesses. And another linkage is things like we just talked briefly about connectivity in the community with the idea of buses or handy darts. And that connection in the community extends beyond the community for things like year-round, the economy, maybe encouraging improvements to the roadway, say, for example, to Mount Baldy, speaks to year-round opportunities for economic development. The third rationale behind this section is it provides support to applications for funding opportunities, which we see are coming out of the woodwork. The more policies we have in plans that are adopted by council that support our applications, the better off we are when we're in the running for those grants, etc. So the attached drafted table of comments and the draft community goals and policies section are presented here again for your review and general comment. And then the next steps in the process are to finish the entire OCP, which we will have prepared mid to late February and present then in that time frame, early March to council, hopefully in a larger public forum. And then, of course, it's all about how do we roll this out for the public. And we'll just wait and see what the new year brings us before we make any solid plans about what that might look like. So with respect to the community, again, consistent, clear, and effective regulations and policies contribute to achieving community objectives and vision. And the public consultation is an integral part of the process. Organizationally, town staff continue to work with urban systems on the first full draft. And then discussions are underway with the CEO and management team to determine the best way, again, to bring this full draft out to the public. And then, of course, organizationally, an important part of the process is the referral to other agencies. I met last week with representatives from the school district to talk briefly about the direction that we're going with the new official community plan and what they can anticipate with respect to increase in numbers in our community, resulting in a need for increased seats in our schools. With respect to the budget, council's approved an overall budget of $150,000, and we are on track to complete on budget. Again, ideally, the first draft of the new OCP will be presented to council in February. And as you all know, the long-term environmental sustainability of our official community plan is, of course, linked to our community and sustainability plan, which is also reflected in the new OCP, and we may want to even update that in the future. So again, there's no options. This is for information and discussion only at this time. So what I was thinking we would do now is I will just speak to sort of briefly each section, and like, for example, the table content section, and then we'll ask if there's questions and comments on that section, and then we'll just systematically go through it. So obviously, the table content section we reviewed briefly at our July 14th meeting, and it has been updated to include the community goals and policies section. But I wanted to just take special note of the implementation section, that is 9B. So 9B is our project section. So the key items that council wants to see as our projects rolling out of the OCP and what you want to see done possibly, you know, before your term is ended, or well underway before your term is ended, is obviously a housing strategy. I see as being a key project which builds on our housing needs report. An economic development plan or strategy, I'd say would be the top two, and then council may want to think about either now or through the process prior to us going to first and second reading of the new OCP bylaw, what those, say, 3 or 4 key projects might be. So I just raise those for your consideration. And I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, comments, or whatnot about the table content section.
No.
One sidebar note I will make is we are working with OBWB and the conservation program in Okanagan, and so I can say that our mapping will be up to date. We also had some flybys done by True Consulting of the foreshore of the lake, so we're going to have the most up-to-date Skookum mapping this OCP's ever seen. It's very exciting. So, yes.
Kind of back up.
Sure.
Through your table of contents, number 7, their use of land policies. Do we have policies relating to all those?
Yes. So what happens in every official community plan, thank you, Councillor King, you'll have land use policies relative to agriculture, relative to residential.
And when was the last time they were all updated, these policies?
The previous OCP,
10, 12, 15 years ago?
yeah.
So was that like 18 years ago?
No, 2008.
That 12 years ago? Thank you.
Yep.
So,
and we've talked briefly about that.
yeah,
But those will all be coming to you as part of the whole new OCP.
Okay.
so like we would be reviewing them sort of one at a time, going through them, or?
Yeah,
Because I mean, that's part of our job, is to update these policies.
that's correct. So you would, keeping in mind that it's a community plan, not just a plan of council, but we would definitely present the entire OCP with the maps that coordinate with the land use policies. So for example, the industrially designated properties, we would see that coordination of the policies related to the industrial use lands. Good?
Yeah, good.
Sure.
One last question.
Sure.
I don't know if it's normally in an OCP, but for future, like development, bringing other lands into the town boundaries, does that get recognized in here somewhere?
We can speak to it, but we don't usually make a statement such that we will look to expand the boundaries.
Well, how do we grow?
Well, we can speak to that,
Okay.
certainly.
Okay, will you speak to it then?
We would put that in the growth management section.
Thank you.
Okay, can I ask,
Sure.
you mentioned Okanagan Basin Water Board, and they're doing a lot of mapping and looking at water issues in the entire valley. And is that what you mean when you say
Yes.
you're dealing with them?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Mayor McCordoff, that's
So you
correct.
do have the new mapping?
Yes.
Yes, and you're using that. I know that several other communities are also looking at that and
Yes,
the
we
flood
have it.
mapping.
Yes.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Also, I should say that, I could say this now, that the Okanagan Basin Water Board is, and the IJC, International Joint Commission, is looking at how we can put on a water science forum. It would be the 4th one that Osoyoos has done. It is scheduled to be here in Osoyoos at the Sonora Center in about mid-October. Now, you know, we're not sure whether it's going to go forward, sort of depending on what happens. If it's not in mid-October, it could be moved to the spring of 2022. It's, Ms. McKay, I think that would be really important for you to participate and be involved in this. We certainly open it up to all of the members of our community and our students and everything. It's fascinating, and we get all the specialists in all water activities from all over Canada and the United States. So we're hoping that things will be, that the borders will be open by then and we can do it. So I'm on the planning committee, so we're working on it already. Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Gina, just so I understand this, we're going to put this together. You're going to go back to your recommendations. So if somebody, let's say the Saccone property, and deciding what's going to happen with that, how is it going to be developed, how does a community in the future, you come back and make recommendations to us, if they have some ideas about parks or property or stuff like that, how do they get further input? Because our meetings were cut back quite a bit because of COVID.
Right.
And I don't think the public really got as much input in as they could have. How are they going to be able to participate more? Like you say, it's not a council decision, it's not management decision.
Right.
It's a community decision. How do we get the community more involved?
Right, so that's a very good question. So in my overview report, I did mention that the town senior staff are just trying to determine the best way to present the full first draft to council and to the public. We don't really know what's going to happen with the provincial health orders moving forward in January and February as obviously increases to the vaccine. Our vaccine becomes available to more and more people in our community, so we don't really know what that's going to look like. But we will obviously be having that conversation with council as provincial health orders change. With respect to individual properties, that's not the goal of the official community plan, is not to determine the look, the style, the density of an individual property. The goal of an official community plan is to provide an overall vision for the community and general high-level policies to help guide future planning processes rather than specifics about one property. And then, so that would relate, for example, to the Conconi property. The other issue is relative to parks and specific uses within parks. As council is aware, myself and the Director of Community Services are working on bringing forward a draft outline of what our parks planning process is going to look like. So we'll take the information that we've gathered to date through the official community planning process, and then we will again work on developing that new parks plan. And Councillor King is also passionate about this as well, and we've not forgotten that. That again, we are still stuck with that challenge of how to have that conversation with the community. So we will bring forward an overview of what we think that planning process will look like. We'll bring that forward in 2021. And again, how we're going to have that participant, we don't know yet, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Okay.
This is great. It's good dialogue. So again, the community goals and policy section, this little intro to the section is just to give you an overview. I personally think it still needs some work myself, so be gentle on us with this section, but it's meant to demonstrate the connection again between people within the community, the vibrancy of people and the vibrancy of the community itself. And again, a well-connected community is one that has amenities that are readily available, accessible by multi-modes of transportation, And again, these are the kind of things that make a community desirable to live in. And when people want to live here, we should make sure that we have a range of housing opportunities for them to select from for their socioeconomic and backgrounds. And of course, a diverse community is, again, one that's desirable to live in. So again, this is our general background section. There's not a lot of meat and potatoes in here. But and it is very much draft. I think it needs a little bit more massaging myself, so, moving on into our local identity and quality of life, you'll note as you read this section that, a lot of the comments and our policies in here are you can recognize where they came from during our public consultation processes. Again, each of these sections in the community goal and policy section has been set up such that we identify at the beginning what the community goal is, and then the citizen direction, and then the policies relative to that particular section. So with respect to our community goal, our community members embrace the unique character and natural setting of our town. And again, the policies in the OCP are aimed at maintaining these attributes and at fostering a strong sense of place and community and pride amongst our residents. And again, that also makes it desirable for newcomers that want to consider locating in our community.
Councillor Bennett had a question. Could
Sure.
she interrupt?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I just would like to go back to community goals and policies where we're talking about demand for new workers. I think we could put something there about schools as well, because our schools, they've tried to shut down a couple times, and I think if we don't have younger families coming in and we lose the schools, then we have a real problem. So it's just a thought.
So you want to include it in the A to G list on the other page? Is that what you're thinking?
I was thinking like
Yeah.
in number 6 where it just says a demand for new workers who in turn will require housing and
Yeah, I
also
can.
schooling.
Yes,
Good.
thank you, Councillor Bennett. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank Judy, she read that.
Councillor King?
Just talking about 3.2G, you talked about a new master plan for parks and trails master plan, but I see you're going to include a cultural master plan. Is that going to be separate? Or it kind of reads it's going to be inclusive, and how much time do you have?
It really depends on the direction that council wants to go. We put these in here as an overarching goal, so a cultural master plan process or incorporating that into a Parks and Trail master plan. I've seen it done both ways, so it really depends on the desire of council. We could pull that cultural master plan out and make it a separate, if
Well,
council's.
you mentioned you and Mr. Davis are working on the Parks and Trails master
Yeah.
plan, so that's where I got inquisitive, if it's going to include the cultural master plan, or maybe we
Right.
should do that separate.
That's why I put consider. So, which is a key planner term for, I'll wait and see what council tells me to do.
Well, I mean, is this the time to, not to
Certainly.
tell you what to do, because, I mean,
No,
you're
I-
passionate about this, you're excited about it.
I-
We're all excited that this is
We are.
finally getting done, so I really congratulate you on all the time and effort you're
Thank
putting
you.
into this, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor King, and I mean, I think that's up to council. I mean, a lot of people see the connectivity between parks, trails, and culture in a community, so that's why I like it to be in part of that. I personally, but not every community sees the benefit of having them wrapped up together.
Well, I would kind of be the opposite. I would prefer to see it separate, because when I'm talking parks and trails, I'm thinking of walking or doing activities in park. When I'm talking about cultural, it could be tied into the events, the art center, the museum, and those type of things outside of Parks and Rec, personally.
Okay. How does the rest of council feel? Councillor Harvey, or I guess
Or
I'm not the chair,
Councillor-
so I
Yeah,
shouldn't
go ahead,
do that.
Councillor Rhodes. Go ahead.
I support
yeah.
Councillor King's opinion. Short and sweet.
Thank you.
And I do think that one of the things we have in this town is a wonderful sense of culture and arts and, okay, got him. And I think that including those kinds of things, as I recall when we did the what was it called? You know, we looked at the Gyro Park a few years back. What was it? Not a freshet, but it was something like that. And we looked at all of the things that needed to be done down there. And one of the big things was including arts and a charrette, not a freshet. Yeah, charrette. That's it. That's the one. And we looked at that, and we have so many fabulous artists and musicians and so on in this town that I agree. I had that underlined too. The cultural master plan is absolutely something we need to look at. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say, I don't have a strong opinion that it be standalone or incorporated. If standalone, excuse me, if standalone, I think at the end of the day, there's still going to be a linkage, especially where cultural artifacts or cultural displays are fit in to parks and trails, because that's where they're going to show up. I mean, there's some of them, and I see it, you know, downtown revitalization, cultural artifacts, but they also fit into trails and parks. So, you know, I lean a little bit towards the latter option in that respect, but I don't think separating them out really has a huge impact.
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
I have an idea.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I would and I like the direction that Councillor Harvey's going there. I was going to say, I think that in the Parks and Trail Master Plan, we have to demonstrate that link to culture in the community, but I think undertaking a cultural master plan independent is also a good idea. So I see both kind of working.
Fair enough. We could include both. Yep, great. Thank you.
Okay.
To get clarity, you said include both. Are we talking separate or both?
No, I'm saying I think that in a Parks and Trail Master Plan, you have to identify the relationship between culture and but however, I do see the benefit in undertaking a cultural master plan separately.
Perfect. That'll be done then. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to put it in the policy.
He's ready today, isn't he? He's
on the ball.
Your number.
That little weekend away, and he's a changed man, I tell you. That's all we need to know. So moving along, and again, you know, we can jump back and forth.
Sure.
Because sometimes you'll be reading one section and it'll trigger a comment on a previous section and so forth. So again, on housing in our neighborhoods, the policies within the OCP, again, seek to attain a goal of having neighborhoods that are compact, inclusive, and designed in a manner that provides accessible connections to everyday amenities and services. And again, ideally, Osoyoos offers a diverse array of affordable and adequate housing options to existing community members and new residents. You know, a comment was made that maybe the housing section could be beefed up a bit, and I don't disagree necessarily with that comment. One of the challenges with a housing section official community plan is we have to be very careful not to give the impression that the town actually builds houses or you know, so the official community plan again provides an opportunity for us to demonstrate to the community what our role is in the housing in our community. And that being said, I think the housing strategy is a very key point and why it should be one of your projects. But if council has any other ideas about what they might want to see with respect to any other policies in the housing and neighborhood section, I obviously encourage you to make those comments or recommendations. One of the key things that we're looking at doing and what we've identified here is the short-term rental permitting process to regulate the use of residential properties for commercial uses, i.e. Airbnbs, which is policy point 2E under B, the housing in our neighborhood section. Again, the affordable housing strategy demonstrated that while some of those, you know, Airbnbs are perhaps taking away some of our rental housing, it doesn't really have the big impact that we think it does, or has been mentioned before. And then again, the official community plan does lend itself as an opportunity to provide direction to the zoning bylaw. And one thing we're looking at doing is the opportunity for carriage homes, accessory residential units, in addition to suites on single-family properties.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Harvey
Yes.
to comment, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to suggest, I don't have the right wording for it, but I want to suggest, although the town doesn't provide housing, it's more policy, and it seems to me we ought to say what we don't do. Not so much that we don't build houses. My notes are that we need to encourage resorts to do their own seasonal staff housing, that we don't zone for that. And although I do see it noted later in economic prosperity, I think it belongs in here, is transient agricultural worker housing is not in the municipality's long-term plan or vision, that we promote the RDOS in the province to develop policies on them. I think it belongs in the housing section because we're explicitly, you know, not doing those things and not developing policies around those two items.
So,
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank
And
you.
then-
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and that's a very good point, Councillor Harvey. So maybe something along the lines of a policy, and just off the top of my head, that says something specific like, well, the town does not specifically provide housing to worker housing, transient worker housing. We are supportive of opportunities for individual, I would say, agricultural businesses to provide housing on their own properties. And then a comment about encouraging resorts, et cetera, hotels, et cetera, provide housing to facilitate their needs for their own workers. To those effects, is that the kind of idea that you're hoping?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking seasonal resort workers as
Okay.
opposed to full-time. The
Yeah.
full-time ones will take advantage of our housing opportunities. It's really, you know, like the seasonal staff housing that you see in large resorts, Whistler, Banff, and small ones. Like, to me, it's the resort's responsibility to provide seasonal housing, not the municipality.
Yes, I
And
can.
so, how to frame that in a less negative
Yeah.
way, I leave to you for the moment, but that's the nub of my thought on that one.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I
I-
certainly support that.
I agree, and some of the resorts do provide housing, and so we need to encourage that. Councillor Rhodes and then Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Tina, I'm curious about the wording and the comments in the infill development part, that point 3. When the final draft is done, will the wording be more definitive rather than using explore the viability of and that kind of thing? I feel strongly that any kind of infill is really important in our community because we're boy, what Councillor Harvey is struggling with is catching everywhere.
The dry air.
Yeah.
Fisherman's
I'm a little
friend?
concerned that, you know, because we have a very limited amount of land and developable properties in our community, the infill is a really, really important thing. And I think our strategic growth policies are very definitive in densification being very important. And this is something that really will help us carry that mandate forward, you know. Mm-hmm. And also, infill development and some of the suggestions that you have in the wording there also has a more affordable component to it. They have a tendency to be, less expensive and more accessible. And particularly in our downtown area, because if you allow infill, like with alley entrances into apartments and that kind of thing, you increase densification in the downtown area, which is a huge boost to our Main Street business and other businesses in the area.
Good. And those were both mentioned in the last OCP review, because I was part of that for the regional district at that time. And that was really an important thing, densification downtown. So I totally agree. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say in 2B, where you're talking here about the housing incentive programs, I think that's a very strong statement. I think that's basically what we have to do to get things starting right away.
Excellent. And may I, if I may, Mayor, Mayor McCordoff, I almost said Mayor Sue.
It's all
But
right.
anyway, thank
can
you,
say
Madam
that.
Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Those are excellent comments. I think the important thing also to recognize is that what we've done, you'll recall, we decided to go from in the new official committee from having what we have in the current one, which is a low, medium, and then high density designations. We're having 2 designations only. Gentle, Gina, gentle. Low to medium and medium to high. So there's going to be an overlap in the middle, which allows for townhomes or duplexes, and the specifics around the types of lots that those will be allowed on will be identified in the zoning bylaw. So that's why in section 3 here, when we speak to infill development, we look at opportunities for carriage housing, et cetera, small lot development, et cetera. And we can also look at, as Councillor Rhodes puts out, different densities permitted in those already developed areas to provide greater info. One of the benefits now is, of course, with the changes to the BC Building Code, you are allowed to have more than one suite. You're also allowed to have suites in duplexes. So we will be looking at that. That will be reflected in our zoning bylaw update. So that's great.
And also small homes. I remember when I was at UBCM a couple years ago, and I think I brought you back the sheet that I'd picked up, Ms. McKay, and it was about small homes that could be put together that would fit probably for a single person, or would might work for workers that are coming for short periods of time, and I think, I'm not sure whether that's included in what you said with carriage homes, but those small homes that in Vancouver, I think they have some of them where they build them and then they can actually put them together
Right.
in some cases. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I'm familiar with that.
Good.
That program. I think as we look towards infill development, we really need to get a good grasp on the short-term rental situation. And when I say short-term rental, I mean Airbnb rental. I don't mean renting out to snowbirds for 3 months in the winter. I mean, we have to get a grip on that. If we're going to be building smaller homes, multiple suites in a single-family home, et cetera, we better make sure we have a good grip on that short-term rental, and whether that means a short-term rental program or permitting process like they did similar to the one in Penticton, I'm not sure. I'll ask for council to make a decision on what would work for our community. I'll bring forward some ideas, and council can make that decision. But we better make sure we have that in place.
And perhaps proper licensing.
That's correct.
Because you certainly want to have people looking at parking and interior health and water and sewer and all those kinds of things that could come back and haunt us if we don't do it carefully. So I agree.
Good points.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, Councillor King,
Yeah,
was it you?
I guess comment the same as Councillor Rose there, where that Explorer, it looks like a job you're gonna work on, where I think permitting carriage homes in the
Right.
zoning, so.
Right.
I guess my question would be, are you gonna look at changing the bylaw ahead of time, or if this gets passed, would this just be a one-at-a-time knockoff thing?
No, thank you, Councillor King. That's a good question. So what we're doing right now, as we're writing the OCP, I'm actually basically writing the draft sections of the zoning bylaw
Okay.
so that they
Match it up.
link.
Okay,
So
good.
that once the OCP is adopted, then we bring forward a new zoning bylaw. Won't be right away. I'll need a rest. But for example, when we look at the viability of having carriage homes, there's lots of areas in our community that lend themselves to carriage homes, but there's lots that don't.
Right.
So if you look just over here in the Apple area, for example, there are some areas that have lanes. So those lanes are lend themselves very well to carriage homes. The larger single-family homes on Cottonwood Drive on the right-hand side as you're going out to Osoyoos Park, they could be a great opportunity for carriage houses. They could also be a great opportunity for higher densities, 3 and 4 townhomes. So we'll look at that as part of the zoning bylaw update. That's a
I
good
guess my
question.
question would be, wouldn't a bylaw have to be changed before we'd adopt this? I guess depending
No.
on how you word the
No.
word
doesn't.
here.
That's why you say explore the viability. You're providing direction with, but this is not regulatory.
Okay,
Okay, good.
you want to be an explorer.
Dora.
Dora the Explorer. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next section. And that's again the connectivity, and we talked about that just briefly recently when we mentioned about the possibility for having local bus service improvements. So policies within the OCP seek to attain the goal of a well-connected community with an integrated system of roads, trails, sidewalks, et cetera, that provide good access to services and amenities via a range of transportation modes again. And of course, our community really appreciates the opportunity to live in a walkable community. It's really a complete, it is what we want to see as planners. It does provide us that opportunity. And of course, the policies in this section speak to that. I will put one little caveat in here. When we talk about working with transit to implement actions outlined in the 25-year network vision, including the 2015 Transit Future Plan for South Okanagan, we're hoping that that will be updated. And then again, we put these in here and then we do refer this to BC Transit. So hopefully they're supportive of what we've included here. Thank you, Mayor McCorda.
Go
I
ahead.
got just on this subject you're talking about, I got to ask, what's Route 41? Or is that the number?
That's the number.
Going from here
Yeah,
to
that's the
there?
bus number.
I guess when I read this, it depending on what BC Transit usually brings a lot of funding to the table for the bus service. To me, it implies we're looking at increasing the service when you, like number I, the first EI, or E1.
Well, these
increased
came,
service, that sounds like we're gonna do that?
yeah, so that's a good question. Thank you, Councillor King. So basically it says, work with BC Transit, and this is their plan. Their plan is to increase the service. So, that came right out of BC Transit's 2015 Transit Future Plan for the South Okanagan. Their plan is to increase service, to introduce Saturday service, increase the frequency, et cetera. I through 1 through 5 there came out of their plan.
Yeah, I guess I just read it a little different than how you, when I say work with BC Transit, then we're gonna increase it.
Okay, we can look at the wording on
I
that.
think you're just playing with a few words
Sure.
personally.
And the town will have a say on that because you'll sign an annual operating agreement to allocate the local
Right.
share of funding as well.
And maybe we should mention that in here as well.
Well, I guess while we're just talking about that, and mentioned it earlier about that 136 million funding, where under 5 it talks about the Handy Dart. Maybe the group that looks after Handy Dart has something on shelf ready to move forward with. Maybe there would be an opportunity, at least ask them. Thank you.
We'll check the grant first.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, go ahead.
So should I
Can
move-
I
oh,
just
sure.
stop for a sec? Are we okay? We've got another, we have
We
a,
have about 5 minutes.
we've got, yeah, could we, is it possible to finish your report within
Sure.
5? Okay, thank you very
Oh.
much.
Well, that
Yes.
depends on what Councillor King, I think.
Councillor
I think when we
King
get to
can
the
come and
economy
visit you
section,
later.
Councillor King may have some
yeah,
comments.
we're waiting.
Probably recess and reconvene
Yes.
after the conversation with our new MLA.
Okay, we could do that. All right, go ahead, let's see where we get
Sure,
to
so
first.
community
Thank you.
vibrancy is, thank you, Mayor McCarthy, is our next section. Again, we seek in this section to obtain the goal of a town which is recognized for its vibrant neighborhoods and bustling commercial nodes, including the town center area. Now, I wanted to make sure that this particular section did not speak to just the town center. It was very important to me to make sure that we look at enhancing the vibrancy of the existing commercial areas of Osoyoos. So that includes, of course, the Gateway, the Lakeview Plaza, the town center, the area around Kingfisher, and then from Kingfisher to Park Place, and of course, the commercial nodes on the other side of the bridge. So again, we want to make sure, looking at opportunities for community vibrancy is obviously that dynamic mix of retail, service businesses, et cetera, and then looking at implementing some of the key areas of the town center plan, and we wanted to make sure that they're included in here, just so that we don't lose sight of those. And then again, establishing those commercial nodes for people, not just for traffic. And we do understand that in our community, how important it is. We don't want people to jump in their car and drive somewhere when they can certainly walk. And then the community events also contributes to the community vibrancy. So I'm not sure if anyone has any comments or questions about this section.
Just one question under 2D where there's a universal accessibility design principles.
Yes.
Is there actually some type of copy of that?
Yes.
Maybe it could be presented to Mr. Davis in the committee, Accessibility and Age Friendly Committee?
I thought he knew about that,
Well,
but.
he more likely does, but I don't think the committee's ever seen it.
Oh,
Bring
and
it up.
that's a very good point. And just so you know, and when you see the draft of everything put together, there'll be things like that and the SEPTA, which was crime prevention through environmental design. Those will be identified in call-out boxes. So this would be something that might find its way into a call-out box.
Good.
But it's a very good point. So where we reference tried and true programs, we will put that in a call-out box. Thank you, Councillor King.
Perfect.
Should we? Excuse me, I think, Ms. McKay, if it's all right with you, we will recess this meeting for, is that the correct term? We need a motion to recess the meeting. We have a Zoom meeting with our MLA, and then we will come back and continue with this. Am I correct? Could we have a motion, please, to recess this meeting? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Review, and we will let Ms. McKay carry on with what she has to present us.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So we ended just before the economic prosperity and business resilience section of our new communities and goals and policy section of the OCP, which is currently underway, the OCP review. So in this section, of course, we do have a fairly prosperous local economy. If you would like some numbers around that, many businesses are up about 200% this year. So despite the fact that there's a worldwide pandemic, people that needed to get away when we had that window of opportunity seemed like they all came here. So the citizen direction that we heard during our conversations with the community is they want to see our community grow and develop in a manner that's sustainable for current and future generations. This was important, and as is the health, the natural, cultural, and social environments should not be compromised to achieve a local economic prosperity. The top priorities for economic development in the community that we feel are, again, providing that range of housing options for the community is very important to economic prosperity. Ensuring the daily needs of residents are met through the provision of basic goods and services. Attracting year-round industries that positively contribute to existing agricultural and tourism sectors. And of course, supporting existing businesses through cultivating a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation. And you must have noticed all the new businesses that popped up this year. It's quite something, isn't it? Of course, Junction 3, which has been quite successful, the new flower shop, the new tack shop that's going in just across from AJ Foods, and then, of course, the new business down the street, which is set to open soon beside Remax. Those are just a few of the ones that are front and center that you can see as a result of walking around. But there are lots of other new businesses, and home-based businesses are on the rise again as we see new members come to our community, and as mentioned by our new MLA, the opportunity for people to work from home has increased as a result of, basically a spin-off of COVID, if we are going to call it a spin-off. So the policies in this section are aimed at looking at things like the importance of providing a good infrastructure, amenities and services which do support the commercial industrial development, and then again recognize the importance of the agriculture and tourism industries and how they contribute to our economic health, and then of course generating opportunities for attracting new businesses. Now, again, as mentioned previously, we may want to see, adding economic development plan in this section, or we might want to keep it in this section and in the project section. I'm not sure. I'll wait for council to comment on that. And then, as mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, things like providing access to areas outside of our community, like Mount Baldy, encourages year-round economic opportunities. Again, you would see people staying in our community, dining in our community throughout the winter, and that might also provide support to more winter events, and festivals. So, questions and comments?
Go ahead.
My question, you mentioned working possibly with the South Algonquin Chamber of Commerce. My question would be, is the town actually a member of that chamber? Or
Yes.
I would encourage them to be. They are?
Yes.
I'm very glad to hear that. And one other comment here, under the 4 section C, where you talk to aim to attract technology businesses, maybe that should be reworded a little bit. Because I would like to know how you're going to do that.
Well, again, that's part of providing the infrastructure. We look at technology. The interesting thing in our community is we look at the size and the geographic location of our community. We think we don't have a lot of opportunity for land. But again, I think that this is something you're going to see become more of a home-based business in some
Oh, no, I
cases.
like the idea. It's just,
Yep.
it's kind of implies you're aiming to attract it. And I just was curious how the town would kind of do that.
I will beef it up.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that supports knowledge workers and people relocating to other communities is the quality of life amenities.
sure. Absolutely.
Taking care of your parks, your recreation, your culture, having a vibrant downtown, having a place to live. It's kind of all encompassing. And so it's do those things and create a very attractive, desirable community, and people will come.
I appreciate your comments from the CEO Chabot on that one, because that's the whole goal of this section, is to demonstrate the connectivity between all of these items. So thank
Good.
you.
Councillor Harvey has a question.
Can't hear you, Brian.
Muted.
Go ahead, Councillor Harvey, when you're unmuted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, under dot 3, support and develop the tourism industry, I would suggest another bullet to enhance the waterfront experience. I mean, the lake is really a key part of the visit. And I've got some very specific ideas about, that waterfront down by Gyro all the way to the sailing club, which I won't share because I don't want to get into a discussion in this meeting about it. But, the waterfront experience can be huge, in addition to the downtown as places to go and things to do and contribute economically.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. And we did have, Councillor Harvey, 6 or 7 years ago, a charrette looking at that whole area. And I assume that could be something that we would look at again. we were kind of waiting to see what happened with the museum building, and then we will, I think, look at redoing that, having a look at what the needs are and what we should be doing with that area. So that's a good point. Was Councillor Bennett, I think, was next, and then you? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment. When I look at economic development and I look at an economic development officer, I just think we don't have that industrial land. I think we need somebody like a business incentive officer or something that can help you go out and figure out how we get the local business we have now, how we can get them to expand, how we can get, draw other businesses in,
Right.
that type of thing. So I think we've had an economic development officer here, we've had it at Destination Osoyoos, and basically they can come up with plans, but they're more city plans. I think we need to be somebody down to earth running that can help you with, you have the plan, but you just don't have enough time. And I think we need somebody to help you bring those businesses here.
Okay, yeah, I see. Were you were
Oh, yeah, I
next
just-
though,
I gotta
so, and
mention
then,
on the
and
last
then I've
page.
got Councillor Harvey.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Madam Mayor. When you talk about the airport land use designation and you're encouraging additional uses, I thought there was only one specific use for that land. So how do we add additional uses?
We'll be looking at that as part of our airport management plan, I would suggest.
Under
Just-
I.
Right,
Would it be correct to say that they'd be ancillary uses?
that's correct. So such that the hangars and those kind of things that would attract more people to use the air services.
But I thought they were already in the airport land use designation, those.
Well, they're in the designation, but they're not in a, there's no plan for them, right? Specific plan.
So that means working on a new plan?
Manage a new airport plan?
Yeah,
We don't really have an airport plan.
I know that, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
I gotta keep you working.
Oh, she's got enough.
I'm okay in the work area, but I love to be busy.
No, but I guess I
Additional uses and services, designation and plan.
I guess I relate that we kind of lease it out to a nonprofit organization and they keep coming back to us for different funding or looking to move it forward. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to work maybe closer with them where we're driving it more than they're driving it, or 50-50. Because they seem to come in
Right.
at the odd times and they want a bunch of money and it's not in our budget. So how do we cross-relate that?
That's an English, that's a good question, Councillor King. So, CO Chabot and myself have been in discussion with the Director of Operational Services around, looking at management plan for the area that would maybe look at, the ODES having a little bit more, hands-on management of the area, which could provide an opportunity for them to say, lease out hangars in the area, then they wouldn't have to keep coming back to us for money, which is an option. Of course, this would have to be all vetted through council, but I think you'll see that coming forward in the near future.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Harvey, you had a question?
Comment. In response to Councillor Bennett's comment about an economic development officer of some sort, I think that's entirely premature at this point. Over a year ago, we had a meeting with that fellow from the province, get his name, about economic development and the multifaceted nature of it. And we talked about having a facilitated session come up with a plan. And whether we hire somebody or not, it would be an outgrowth of a plan, which we don't have. It's my internal frustration. So that may be a fallout, it may not, but I don't see it landing on this list. I see developing the plan as a project, as Ms. McKay noted early on under the table of contents. I would like to see that moved up.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Anybody else on this particular section? Okay, Ms. McKay?
Okay, great. So now we're moving on to the connectivity to the valley. And again, this is something that I mentioned And it, again, demonstrates the linkage between all of these different sections in this part of the OCP. So basically, we all recognize that businesses, stakeholders, local governments throughout the South Okanagan, we all impact each other and the overall health of our valley. And again, we continue to work closely with all those different groups to implement decisions that reflective of our entire greater community. And our well-being is tied to that of the South Okanagan as a whole, and we need to maintain that connection and consider goals that affect all of our regional partners. So our policies in this section speak to building a stronger relationship with the Osoyoos Indian Band, and then continuing to collaborate with the South Okanagan local governments, other local governments, and the regional district, and then encouraging civic participation and collaboration. So I'm not sure if anybody has any specific comments, questions, or...
This is the last page, I gotta ask.
No, it's actually not. It's Mr. Chabot's favorite topic next.
Oh, okay.
all right.
I just really, and I
Sure.
believe that OIB plays a very important role in our community. It helps bring a lot of extra people to the town that supports our business. Would there ever be an opportunity to kind of sign some type of MOU or something with the OIB? Maybe that's not the right term, where we're kind of ahead of the game, talking on issues with them, or setting up a committee with them on a more regular basis?
Absolutely, that's
Yeah.
the first item under policy 1A.
Yeah.
To sign a recognition protocol, really a communication protocol.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
something new that you're working on?
Work on a relationship with them.
Right.
We've got a meeting scheduled, community to community, the Soyuz all over and all.
That's about next year sometime? Yeah, in March, 90 days.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, but I think it's important that
Absolutely, it's
we
critical.
get closer
Yeah.
to that.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Councillor King, and that's why it is number one on the list here, promoting a town OIB protocol as pointed out by the CO for regularly exchanging information on matters of mutual interest, including land use and infrastructure planning.
Thank you.
That is key. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Just an update. I was contacted by the Trails of the Okanagan, and
Yeah.
we've, a bunch of groups have been working on trying to get the KVR completed. And January 4th, I'm going to meeting, and we've now joined with, it's gonna be all the way from the Bennett Dam and Kelowna to the, so east to the border. And we now have people on Penticton, Peachland, Summerland, Oliver, and I'm gonna be the rep from Osoyoos.
Okay.
So we're gonna be meeting on a regular basis, trying to work as a group to get the KVR trail completed.
And I know that you want to include it across the border too, when that's possible, eh?
Yeah, that's a bigger step.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good.
That's great.
Any other questions on this issue? Connectivity, good. So is this
So-
6G?
That's correct. So this is about greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. And again, we can see easily how this is connected to a multimodal transportation instead of getting everybody out of their cars. We will continue to lead by example for small communities, and we do identify opportunities for reduction of greenhouse gases emissions, and we put that in our CAREP report every year, climate action report. So again, our geographic situation is recognized as one of the top attributes that people love about being here. Unfortunately, right now, people get here in their own private vehicles, so we're hoping that that can change over time. But policies in this section seek to exploring opportunities to conserve energy throughout our community, reducing our carbon footprint, and ensuring that our residents have access to abundance of healthy food. And one of the reasons that the healthy food section is included in here is because we planners in our conversations note that changes in the ability to produce food or bring food into a community may be impacted by changes in the climate over the future. in the future. So that is something that we include in here because it is recognized as an opportunity. The closer we can get our food from home, to home, from our home, between our home and the farm is obviously a benefit. So it is something that we do now look at as part of reduction of greenhouse gases, but it's been suggested that maybe this may be a section that should be included elsewhere. Obviously, this is something we also speak to in the agriculture section.
Good.
So I'm not sure if anybody has any
There
questions or
is a
comments?
fellow from, and I'm trying to think where he's from, but he presented at the RDOS several times about healthy food and agriculture and stuff. He says, he maintains, and I've forgotten his name, I'll think of it, that the South Okanagan is the absolute best place in Canada to produce ground crop and a lot of vegetables and fruit. Best place. So, and the other thing that was mentioned was that wine growing areas, because of a little bit of climate change and it staying a little bit warmer, it used to be that this was the area that grapes were grown and that was the best area. Now it's continuing all the way up. I mean, even up into Kamloops and, you know, up the whole Okanagan.
Yeah.
So my concern is I think we need to make sure that we're not just growing grapes, that we need
I agree.
to, we need to have a variety of vegetables and fruit and, because otherwise we're all going to be eating grapes and drinking wine, which is probably not a bad idea, but we need a balance, and I think that should be included.
Well, that's a very good point, Councillor, or Mayor McCarthy, sorry, but it is interesting that the Agricultural Land Commission is more concerned about the setbacks from a new housing development to existing agricultural land than they are about the removal of fruit-producing trees and ground crops to include more viticulture. So that is it is interesting that their policies work in that particular
But
way.
they have, apparently, they have no say on agricultural land, what people grow. They can encourage, but they can't mandate, right?
That's true.
Unless they change the Right to Farm
You talk to them
Act.
if you think that, okay.
There is a way that it could be changed, but that's not my.
Well, it's nice to see lots of young people taking small
is.
pieces of land and growing vegetables and selling them online or at the farmer's market or at fruit stands. I think it's absolutely important.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Go ahead.
If we're wrapping this section up, I just wanted to mention that Urban Systems this year, instead of sending us a basket of more food we don't need, well, we do need it, but maybe not quite as much cheese.
Chocolates.
And chocolates. They've made a donation on our behalf to the Osoyoos Food Bank, a $200 donation on our behalf. So that's why you didn't see chocolates roll in saying from Urban Systems.
That's a
Thank you.
wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Please thank them for that, because I think that's great. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much, Ms. McKay. That was a very detailed report, and thank you, Councillor King, for going through it with a fine-tooth comb, because
I never got this last section in hard copy, that's why I got no questions.
yeah. All right, so I am assuming that we do not have anything else on this agenda, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Harvey.